My first time watching one of Sly's cult hits.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for a 1986 action movie, and it stars the legendary action hero himself of the 80s, Sylvester Stallone. And it's the film he did after Rambo First Blood Part 2. And this is also one of Rambo Afterlife's favorite movies. I think this is his second favorite movie of all time. And that's going to be for none other than 1986's Cobra. So what's this plot about? Well, as crime runs rampant in the United States, the hard-as-nails LAPD Lieutenant Marion Cobra Cobretti is the only cure for the crime-infested urban jungle of Los Angeles. In the meantime, a string of seemingly unconnected and unmotivated random assaults on civilians will soon drag the hardened officer into a violent war against the psychopaths of the secret organization named the New World. With the criminal society's sole purpose to weed out the weak, Cobra will escort an unimportant witness, the young model Ingrid, out of town to protect her. However, the movement's delusional killers will stop at nothing to track her down. Now, the only one who stands in their way is the one-man army lieutenants. Are they prepared for Cobra's nasty bites? Yeah. So, how was this film made? Well, when Sylvester Stallone signed to play the lead in Beverly Hills Cop, he decided to rewrite the script completely, removing nearly all the comedic aspects and turning it into an action movie that he felt was better suited to him. The studio read his revised script and he rejected it. The proposed action scenes would have increased the budget for beyond what they planned, and Stallone later channeled his ideas into an original script. And for this movie, the novel Fair Game by Paula Gosling was cited as the source material, and also enough that she received a screen credit for this movie. And Sylvester Stallone's early draft of the script contained many differences from later drafts in the final film, and these included the opening shootout taking place in a movie theater instead of a grocery store, during which many more people are killed, and Cobra mentioning how he had a girlfriend who was killed by a psychopath he was trying to catch, an additional big nighttime action sequence on a boat where Cobra and Ingrid are hiding and are attacked by the night slashers called Members, with Cobra and Gonzalez managing to kill them all, and a different ending in which it's revealed that Monte was the actual leader of the New World cult, and when he tries to kill Ingrid, he is shot and killed by Cobra. And the line, "Where this is where the law stops and I start, sucker," was inspired by a line spoken by Steve McQueen in this film called The Rivers. And of course, when it came to editing and PAA-wise, Cobra needed much additional editing because the film was so graphically violent it originally received an X rating, and eventually got edited down to receive an R rating. So, after this whole movie Cobra was shot and marketed, Cobra went on to be released to the public in 1986, and of course, like many of Stallone's films back then, it received negative reviews from overly entitled critics, where criticism is focused on the overuse of genre tropes and excessive violence. But it still debuted at #1 spot in the US box office, and it earned $49 million in the US and a total $160 million worldwide. Not as much as First Blood Part 2 the previous year, but still fine enough for a $25 million budgeted film. And over the years have passed, it's gone on to become a cult classic, and for very great reasons. Because this movie deserves to be a cult classic. It's very epic to watch. Because as for my reaction, fuck the RT critics. Fuck them. I think this movie is a masterpiece in action. Better than some of the over CGI films, lighthearted PG-13 fests today, and back when movies weren't afraid to get violence. It's cool without really trying at all. Stallone in this movie is slick, and his appearance in this movie was just machismo. His black mop hair, the sunglasses that are definitely really manly for a lot of action heroes back then. unlike today, his no-nonsense attitude, and he'll definitely kick any criminal's ass just looking at him raw in here. The plot is simple, but oh boy, does it really work here. And this honestly feels like a way better Judge Dredd film than Judge Dredd 1995. I feel like this would have been a better Judge Dredd film for Stallone. This feels more like a better Judge Dredd film that Stallone should have did. Unlike the 1995 version, this has the dark tone of Judge Dredd. Lot, and heck, you could even call this like an 80s Punisher film. 2. The opening scene and the action within sets the tone, and you would know exactly what you're going to expect from this movie. A lone gunman walks into a supermarket without warning or clear motive, and he begins to shoot up the place. He knocks this one grocery shopper out of the way, one staff member falls him, but he then whips out his gun, starts shooting up the whole place, and it's just perfect. Right here. And then Cobra shows up, and pretty much catches the guy. Or takes the guy out. The cops are like surrounding the place, like, call Cobra. And Cobra shows up. And he takes care of the guy. In a movie where everything is tense, there's got to be a little lightheartedness. Like, these kinds of things are included so that the viewer knows that the main characters know what they're doing. Yeah, but the many critics who panned this movie upon release, they said the dialogue was boring and the acting was terrible. I don't see any terrible acting in here. There were some good lighthearted moments in here, like whenever Cobra chews out one of his companions for eating this junk food, it's like, eat fish and rice, it's better. That's actually funny. Right here. And him and one of his companions, like, their chemistry's funny in here. It's actual comedy. It's there to lighten the mood so it's not overly depressing and overly pretentious. And I think Stallone's character was written to be the way it was in the film, nothing more. What's so bad about that? Then again, they prefer the more cringier comedy we get today. Like, this is back when comedy and action movies was actually funny. Right here. This is actually funny comedy we want to see in certain films. And the action sequences in this movie, what makes them so good in this film, it's how they're well executed, because much of the story is this chase, it keeps the viewer on their seat, and some action sequences are so unique in this movie, not sure you'd find on any films like today, any films today doing such a stunt. This is definitely what got this movie to earn so much money. With a budget of $25 million, they earned back almost twice as much, and that's pretty good for its time. I mean, it didn't earn as much as First Blood Part 2, as like they were hoping it probably would, but it still made a decent amount. And the actor who plays the killer is Brian Thompson, who, aka Night Slasher, who I think is pretty scary looking in this film. He grunts, he snorts, he has a bellowing voice that definitely would make the viewer terrified and fear. If they were the person that was going to be murdered by this dude. Like, in one scene, like, he wears this wife beater shirt where his muscles are enormous, and in an arm wrestle alone, like I don't think even Cobra would have stood a chance here. And like, there's one scene involving his character, I believe, like, where it's in a hospital and he's chasing the female lead, and it literally feels like an actual horror movie. It kind of reminds me a bit of the plot of Halloween 2 right here. But she rings the bell, but she pretty much triggers the alarm, and that pretty much gets him to escape before he can find her. And upon looks of the film looks like an interesting combination of action film with elements of slasher horror, now that I think about it. And now, Cobra is definitely not a film that can be classified as horror, but as an action film that provides the viewer with a great amount of entertainment. Like, Cobra is also a canon film, and definitely one of the best action horror thrillers out there. Cobra just rocks. It's entertaining, underrated, and it guarantees the viewer a great show. It's just one of those movies where it's not deep, it's got a social message, but it doesn't overly force it down our throats. It's just pure old fun, like most of 80s action movies were supposed to be. A Night Slasher just kills people randomly, he targets anyone anywhere regardless if they're innocent or not. The police don't even have a clue, and they can't even stop the guy. All they can do is just wait for the next death, but it all changes when the Ingrid gets a good look at the chief of the gang. It's not one person, it's this group of killers that have set their minds on hunting the weak of society. And they'll do anything to kill the only witnesses. And the woman that can finish their dream, but they didn't count on one man, which is of course the Cobra. A movie plays with the idea that murderers use the system to get away with their crimes, and explores the fear in society. The importance of the council introduces Cobra, the cop who doesn't care about the law, only his justice. Right here. And it's, of course, typical action-packed mid-80s fare, along the lines of other films like First Blood Part 2 or Commando, where it depicts a whole array of bad guys getting stylishly wiped out in various ways. The short, sharp movie is classic cheese action entertainment with little plot and lots of stuntmen. Sylvester Stallone is in his element of his characteristic loner, this cliched maverick cop whose hard as nails wisecracks are actually funny. And whether he's wasting a supermarket Steve Psycho in the beginning of the film, or machine gunning an army of motorbike riding weirdos in the film's eye-popping finale. And Stallone's in his prime here, and ironically, the film didn't make much of an impact with viewers at the time. But thankfully, on the bright side though, it did save us from sequels, and at least, unlike Rambo and now Cliffhanger, at least it's not getting decades later sequel. Unless I'm giving them ideas with this video. I better not be giving them ideas. I better not say that. That's going to probably give them ideas to go give Cobra a remake or a sequel next. And probably a shitty woke remake. Where Cobra's now a female. Let's just pray to God that doesn't happen. I'd be pissed off. And a plot writer successfully also somewhat is an action movie, but it also tries to emulate a slasher movie at the same time, because it opens with repeated scenes of the psychopathic killer murdering innocent female victims with this nasty looking shiny knife, and despite being gore-free, the murders are rather sleazy, employing some fine-made acting for veteran Harmon villain Brian Thompson, and some icky sound effects to make up for the lack of Claire on view. After tense and surprisingly effective hospital stuck and slash sequence, the film drops the mock horror angle. And it moves into comic book all-out of action stuff as Stallone engages in this crowd-pleasing car chase with vehicles jumping over hills, like in a lot of other 80s cop films, and mindless destruction, a few cool stunts like the boat crash and then the car park jump. Then there's the acclaimed finale here, easily the best action sequence of the film, where Stallone and his crew retreat to a countryside motel as his hideout, and they're attacked by an entire army of psychopaths, who they mowed down by Stallone's machine gun. Yeah, the story of Cobra is quite interesting. Years before Cobra was made, Sylvester Stallone was going to star in Beverly Hills Cop, but the producers didn't like the dark direction and ideas Stallone had for the film, so he left the project and he took his ideas for this movie. And in Cobra, yeah, originally his name is Marion Cobretti, but usually the cops like to call him Cobra. He's a police detective with a Dirty Harry-esque way of doing things. He investigates, he tries to catch a strange axe-wielding cult that's killing people at random. Then a woman falls witness to a murder of the cult, and the cult begins to go after her and silence her. But after a near-fatal incident in a parking garage of the cult, she begins to work with Cobretti on the case to identify the culprits so she can help Cobra defeat them. It's a true action movie right there. No hesitating, staying that, and definitely no hesitation at watching the movie. When I first watched it yesterday, it's just simply a simple plot. A Dirty Harry-style police officer who works on what's called this zombie squad, and when the regular cops can't get the job done, they call the Cobra to do it. And just a few simple 86 minutes right there. It's not overly 3 hours, it's not overly 2.5 hours, just simple 86 minutes and just a simple plot. Yeah, Stallone once again shines in the lead role, kicking ass and not bothering to take names. He deals with typical thugs at times, faces down a whining, sniveling by-the-book cop who despises Cobra's tactics, and that whining cop is played fantastically well by Andrew Robinson, who was in Hellraiser and Dirty Harry. At its core, though, the film's about the battle between Cobra and the gang of psychopaths, and the film really strays from that, and appropriately so. And action legend Stallone is very cool as Cobra, and back then it was the 80s, and the look is definitely the height of fashion at the time for a lot of action heroes. And Cobra's just such a memorable movie cop that heavily influences Eastwood's own anti-hero cop, Dirty Harry. As for the rest of the cast of this movie, I think they all do a wonderful job on their roles. Like Bridget Nelson is jaw-dropping, and it's one of those movies I love. And it's definitely really good role in this. And usually it would be, some would see this as a mediocre film that probably wouldn't work at all, but because of the cast, because of the story writing and direction, and because of the likable character in Cobra, and because of the cinematography, and even because of the era which it was made, this film is simply just a classic, and great as well. Our final note about the cast: if you've watched enough of the way of movies and television from the 80s, or you grew up in the 80s, you would instantly recognize Brian Thompson as a Night Slasher, and I think Night Slasher is a terrific, terrifying villain. He's ruthlessly psychotic, he enjoys murder more than he enjoys breathing. Thompson is fantastic in these types of roles. It's almost as if he was born for them. Yeah, and the climax takes place in this cliched factory location, which gives Stallone further chances to burn, break, and butcher the opposition, really becoming a sweat and tossing off more wisecracks at every opportunity. See, in one club, you have the right to remain silent forever to a burning victim, and then it's the one-on-one fight with the Night Slasher, the head honko, who ends up being impaled on a hook and fried into a kin, which is a very satisfying death. Easily, I think that's probably one of the most satisfying villain deaths I've seen. What more could one ask for? Some would rather have a realistic story, a realistic script, and good acting. So this film has good acting. And it actually has a real life story. Because this is kind of how the real world works. Usually a realistic script doesn't really come close in this film, but it remains a largely entertaining enterprise due to the fast pace and endless action. And there's comic relief stuff that works. It's funny because it's cliched and enjoyable, brainless fun. Yeah. And Stallone is supported by Bridget Nelson, who doesn't really... Her character, though, doesn't really get anything else to do other than be a damsel in distress as the witness who becomes a stalk victim. And you also have veteran Andrew Robinson as the antagonist superior, who I don't really like. And Renee Santoni is effectable as this likable sidekick, or... Yeah, usually the one that him and Cobra have their quips with, have their little quips on their little junk food quips and stuff. Their scenes are actually funny to watch here, and I really enjoyed their scenes together. And Andrew Robinson's character is really annoying, but thankfully, at the end of the film, Cobra straight up says, after Andrew Robinson's you're not bad, truce, finally punches that idiot, which is so satisfying because that guy really annoyed me. And you got Brian Thompson, and easily just who plays one of the scariest villains of the 80s. Night Slasher. And it's definitely... And yeah, I really liked his performance. Now, would there be bad qualities? Well, there are some parts of the film that can definitely seem a little too 80s to be taken seriously by a few people. There's parts where they play a montage with this cheesy song over multiple different murders. And it begins to temper with the film for some view, with likely tamper with the film for a viewer for a little bit. Another thing is this kind of messy, at times, can be Cobretti's character developments. There's not really much we see of him. We just meet him, and he has to stop a holdup at a grocery store, and then we see him go home, which kind of consists of him grabbing a pizza box, taking one piece of pizza out, cutting some of it with scissors, and while he's loading his gun. But whatever, guys. So we just like to watch this movie. We just get mindless action, and it doesn't ruin his character. I still think he's a terrific character, guys. And definitely one of the best action heroes. And I wish he got more attention, because I don't think he didn't really deserve to be thrown under the bus by critics like this. And honestly, that's all my bad qualities, because I can't think of anything else. Cobra's an action masterpiece, and it always will be an action masterpiece. And it ends perfectly after Cobra punches Andrew Robinson's idiot character. Him and Bridget then just ride off on their motorbike. They drive off on the road, and the credits roll over them driving on the road. It's a perfect way to end it. It doesn't really end on a sequel setup, and honestly, I'm kind of glad we didn't get sequels, because it just ended here perfectly. So yeah, regardless of what people think, I think Cobra's an action masterpiece that deserves better praise to this day, and actually deserves to be called a cult classic. So in the end, Cobra is highly worth a watch and buy for Stallone and 80s fans, and if you haven't checked it out yet, check it out now as soon as possible, or you're missing out. Anyway, that's it for my review of Cobra. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Cobra, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are a huge fan of 80s action and Stallone, then I highly recommend you watch and buy this movie for those collections for sure. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Cobra, I'm going to give Cobra a flat out 9 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for Cobra. So yeah, there are some more Stallone films I need to check out. I plan to check out Demolition Man. I plan to check out Cliffhanger. Yeah. Right now I want to check out some of the older action films I've never heard of, guys. Guys, I never grew up in the 80s. I wasn't born until 98. So, yeah. And I've done these sunglasses for this review because Cobra wears sunglasses. So I want to wear sunglasses for this review, guys. But yeah, if you have seen Cobra, let me know in the comments what you guys thought about the movie. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.